Hi, everybody. This is Miss McClatchy here, coming to you with our new unit. This is chapter 22. So we've gone pretty far in the textbook. This is 22.1, the role of political parties. Please remember that I always post the slides separately as well. So if you ever wanted to go back to them, those are posted for you on the classroom. Okay, so what is the point of this lesson? Well, we're really going to take this in two parts. So this first video, we're going to learn about how political parties help with the government. After that, we're going to actually go a little further bit down the road and look at the leaders in our Congress and our General Assembly today as well. The next series of this video is going to tackle objective number 2, which is learning how political parties help citizens. Okay. So people want things from the government. That's not a surprise, right? We all want stuff. I want you to think all the way back to September, okay? When we first started school, we started with the questions of like, well, why do we even have governments, right? The rule of law, what are its elements? I want you to start thinking back to the idea of the social contract as well. So, in terms of what we want from the government, what we expect, well, number one, we want our rights to be protected. Think about what we discussed with the Bill of Rights, but really at its most fundamental level, we're looking at the protection of our unalienable rights. We also want to be protected against poverty and unemployment. If you think today we have lots of government programs like welfare, like Social Security, like job training to make sure that people are employed in our society, to make sure that people have a way of making a decent living. We also expect to get fair treatment in business, at work, and in the courts. Right? This is really where our judicial branch comes in, our legislative branch comes in terms of setting rules for pay, hours, work conditions, safetiness, and then the courts in terms of arbitrating or solving any types of problems that arise between two citizens or a citizen and a company. We also want a clean environment. We want our nation to be free of pollutants, to be clean. This kind of encapsulates things like, our waste disposal service, our garbage services, but also things like regulations on the environment. Education, product safety. We also expect there to be an education service for people in this country. Product safety, that includes things like making sure that when you buy a car, that car has gone through certain levels of protection, making sure that the airbags work properly. Again, think back to the social contract. In the social contract, we give up some of our rights, right? Free will. As humans, we have the physical ability to go out and do almost anything we want, but we give up some of that freedom to a government, right? Who is the government? These are people, right? People that we choose to work in the government, either through election or through hiring. And in exchange for giving up some of those rights, we are granted services and the protection of those unalienable rights. Think back to the Declaration of Independence, right? Our life, liberty, and property. Alone, an individual may feel powerless to make their own wants, needs, or ideas known, right? We're just one person out of the millions in America. But acting together, groups of people can actually have a much greater effect. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, right? There's always powers in numbers. But originally, our democracy is not originally set up to have major political parties. Again, political parties is going to be the focus of this lesson. Later on, I believe tomorrow, the next socialized class we have, you guys will be looking at George Washington and his farewell address. Because George Washington, our first president, when he left office, he basically warned Americans. He was like, you guys as humans are pretty evil creatures in the base sense of it. Think back to Thomas Hobbes, right? Hobbes' idea of what humanity was. And he was very worried that our democracy would struggle if we developed political parties. So you guys are going to investigate that later on, but I want to throw that out there as well. But on a larger scale, people form groups called political parties in order to influence the government. So that's why a political party exists. A political party exists because as one person, your influence might be limited. Now, if you are Kim Kardashian West, right, and you have millions of followers, millions of dollars, you're married to one of the most famous hip hop rap musicians, producers of all time, yeah, if you post something on Instagram, you might get the attention of senators, right? I know Kanye even went to the White House. Cardi B, my girl Cardi, she even hosted, a conversation with Bernie Sanders. Miley Cyrus in this COVID time. If you like Miley Cyrus, she's been doing videos live every day. And I know Elizabeth Warren was on her show yesterday. But if you're not any of those people, maybe some of you guys will grow up to be, but if you're not a celebrity as an individual, you can feel limited in your ability to influence the nation. So a political party exists to pool together the power and voices and influences of all these individuals to better influence decision making. So I've got our definition right here in yellow. Political party is an organization of citizens who wish to influence and control government by getting their members elected to the office. So parties, we're going to talk all about the different parties. If you're a member of the party, you share similar ideas about what you want government to do. Okay. We're going to look back at the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, the very first beginning of political parties. We might remember the most basic distinction between those two parties was that the Federalists supported that strong national government, whereas the Anti-Federalists were very skeptical of it and wanted the states to take the lead in governing. Right there, that's the division. So remember when we were playing the race to ratify game? Depending on what you believed in, you would have joined either party. And if a party can put together enough of its members into office, meaning electing enough Federalists, enough Democratic Republicans, enough Republicans, that party can then have a major effect on the policies of government because you know that they're all going to be acting in unison. So we're going to get into like the three ways that political parties help government. So if you were taking notes or outlining, these are kind of like your three main ideas, and we're going to go through the details of each. Political parties select candidates for many public offices at all levels of government, local, state, and national. So if we look over here, I thought maybe I can zoom in. Let me take a look. Yeah, I guess not. That's okay. But if we look here, we've talked about how we have our three branches of government, which, separation of powers, checks and balances, those exist at all three levels. So for the executive branch, right, our national leader of the executive branch is the president. But at the state, it's the governor. When you go to a local level, that could be your city manager. It could be that's like your mayor, your town council leader. They're not council leader, but your city manager. Then with the legislative branch, right? At the national level, that's Congress. But at the state level, we have our state legislature. Later on, you guys are actually going to be looking into the Rhode Island legislature, which is called the General Assembly. Local level, you have your city council. Judicial branch, right? We have our federal court system, the highest court being the Supreme Court. And then we have the state courts at the state level. But even within counties or within towns, you have municipal courts. So political parties will help select and find people who believe their same values and say, hey, we want you to run for president, or we would like you to run for governor, or we think you would make an amazing state legislator, or we want you to serve in Rhode Island Superior Court. The next thing that political parties do is they set goals for the government and provide leadership to reach those goals. So within the party, you have your ideas, and then you set the goals, and then you get people to do the jobs that it's going to take to get those policies enacted. Political parties also keep an eye on each other. I'm going to get to that in a minute because I have some sarcastic feelings about that one. Okay, so looking at the first priority. Again, all three priorities are here on this slide. Selecting candidates. So in yellow, these are some of our vocab words here. Political parties nominate or name candidates to run for office. When we did the student council election, you guys self-nominated, right? You put yourself in the running. But political parties often will actually take the responsibility of finding and nominating qualified candidates. They'll actually, have a network and say, hey, maybe this person hasn't been in politics, but they've become very well known for their community organizing or their volunteering, or maybe their work in the business community. So sometimes the party will go out and say, hey, we've been following your career. Why don't you consider politics? Throughout America, there's about 500,000 elected positions. So every one of those jobs need to be filled. And what parties do is they help identify people who would be good at filling those certain roles. Some offices, though, are what we call nonpartisan, right? Whenever we have the non here, not like that delicious Indian bread, but non like it's not. So nonpartisan, meaning that the candidates do not declare themselves to be members of any particular party. Nonpartisan jobs are typically ones that are at a very local level that don't require the major ideologies of Republican or Democrat. So for example, a school board committee member, they are in charge of managing the resources of the district, of communicating with the state's Department of Education. They determine the salaries for teachers, the budgets, the policies. That's such a specific issue that people are just elected on well, this is me. There's not enough positions and it's so localized. So you don't really need a political party. So those are our nonpartisan positions. Other things might be trying to think, things like town council as well. Most offices, though, are partisan, meaning the candidates run as members of a specific party. This word partisan, you've probably heard a lot if you've been following the news. People always say, let's not make this partisan, or, we don't want it to be partisan. Another term would be bipartisan, BI, meaning both. So if something's bipartisan, it means that both parties cooperated on it, collaborated on it, agreed on it. Bipartisan means that the two groups are together. The second responsibility of political parties are setting goals. Again, vocab verbs here in the yellow. The political party establishes positions on issues and then sets goals for the government. A while ago, when I was out one day sick, you guys did a little bit of an investigation into your political beliefs, and you researched a candidate. You should have found some positions that candidate had. So that's very related here. Each party has what we call a platform. Think about what a platform is, right? A platform is something you stand on. Typically, when you stand on a platform, you are, talking to an audience. So each party, it's not a physical platform. It is where's Mr. May when I need him? It's a metaphorical platform. It's a statement, and this is written down. It's a statement of the party's official stance on major public issues. If you think back to that activity you guys did a long time ago, right? Some of the issues were healthcare, national defense, immigration, right? So the party will basically make a position on each of the issues. Each of those positions are called planks. Again, the metaphor here, think about we're building a platform for you to stand on. The platform is made of all these individual wooden planks, right? We call the planks the position statements on each specific issue in the platform. So you have all the planks, put them together, you got the platform. The goal is to get a candidate elected so that they can turn the planks, just these ideas, let's take all these ideas, and actually turn them into policies. Let's make laws about it. Let's put money, into these issues that we think are important. So that's the goal. So in 2000, I pulled up the 2016 convention. So the way that party planks are put together, the way the platform comes together, are at the national conventions. This year, you guys, I have no idea what in the heck is going to happen because of the coronavirus. I don't know if parties are going to have they must. I mean, they're going to have digital meetings. But what you have here is at the conventions, not only is that the meeting where they're officially making their nominations, but it's also where people are voting on the planks. They're voting together to put the platform, to assemble the platform and make it final. This is not too far unrelated from the Freedom Summer documentary. Remember, we had in the 1968 convention, 68, 64, maybe 64, you had the Mississippi delegation. So at each of these meetings, you send a delegation from each state. The size of the delegation, I believe, is also proportional to the population of the state. So Rhode Island delegation would be a lot smaller compared to a California delegation. But it does matter who you send, because those people are going to vote to create the platform. So these were just like the two logos of the Democratic Convention here in Philadelphia, and then the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. This graphic I got from, it was called Democrats Abroad, but if you notice here, they do at the bottom show it does show where they get the information from, so I don't think it's super biased or anything. You can look at the platform side by side. So for example, if we look at just the first one, right? Immigration reform. So the Democratic Party platform, their top priority is immigration reform at that year. They want to defend President Obama's executive action, help the Dreamers, parents of citizens and lawful permanent residents avoid deportation. Whereas on the opposite side, Republican Party platform, they call for building a wall along the southern border of the country. Again, it says opposes any form of amnesty and supports mandatory 5-year prison sentences to anyone returning to the U.S. after being deported. So, these are just snippets of the platform. The platform can become very detailed, but they don't always line up. It's not like a complete point counterpoint, but this is the type of document that gets produced at the conventions. And the goal is, let's get our people elected so we can do these things. That's the idea. The third goal of political parties is to provide leadership. Leadership is necessary to make the laws and carry out the programs that citizens want. Party members in Congress select, they basically pick people to kind of run the show, okay? If you think about just how many people are in Congress, especially in the House of Representatives, you need some people to be in charge of corralling everyone to actually get things happening. So Congress will select majority and minority leaders and whips to provide leadership in making laws. I know it is kind of funny that somebody's job is a whip, but they whip the votes together. Parties also work this way in state legislatures as well. In the executive branch, we talk about the party in office. The party in office is the party of the president. So currently, it's a Republican White House. The president then often appoints loyal party members to high government posts. So in the next video series, what we are going to do, actually, hold on. I have one more thing for you. Excusez-moi. Acting as watchdogs. This to me, this is very funny. I had kind of a chuckle to myself typing this up from the textbook, because I think this really sugarcoats it. I mean, you can tell already just from what I've seen, what you've written to me about current events, you can tell that people are pretty aggressive, to put it nicely, these days, about keeping the other party accountable, to put it nicely. It says here, after an election, the party not in power makes sure that the public knows when the party in power is not living up to its promises. Parties are able to keep tabs on the behavior of members of other parties. They're eager to report any wrongdoing. You can imagine, we love to talk about how bad the other party is doing. The watchdog function of parties makes sure that members of the party in power are honest and hardworking. Take that with a grain of salt, okay? Because basically, I think in America, what we have now is we have two political parties who can never give each other credit for doing something well done, even if it is a job well done, and then also are always on the attack on each other. That's just kind of my opinion, but I feel like as you guys have been following the news this year, you've written to me in your opinions wow, these people are pretty disrespectful of each other. So yeah, that's kind of how we look at that. What we're going to do in the next series is you guys are going to look at who is in charge, and you guys are going to analyze some data. So that was our first video series for 22.1. Please keep in mind that the slides in their entirety are posted on the Google Classroom. Thanks for tuning in.